Welcome back. It's an important part of life that you may not have thought about yet, estate administration. What is it, and what do we need to do? Here to explain is attorney Emily Martin with Hook Law. Emily, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
No one wants to talk about this, right?
No, it's not a fun topic at all, but unfortunately it's something we have to talk about.
Yes, it is essential, and if you don't take the proper steps, then you're actually going to cause a whole lot of problems down the road, potentially. Just to set the stage, what is estate administration?
So estate administration is the process of sorting out someone's assets after they pass away. So whether they have a will or they don't have a will, the legal steps that are required in order to sort all of that out after someone passes.
So when it comes to the process and folks come to you at Hook Law for help with this, what does that look like and what is your involvement?
So it can look very different depending on the estate. As you know, some people may have lots of assets, some people may not have as much, some people may have a blended family, some people may just have one child, or they may have a bunch of children out there. So it really depends on the size of the estate and the makeup of the family and whether or not the person has a will. But it involves a lot of paperwork. It can involve the person's executor if they have a will, or whoever's handling their finances after they pass away, going to the court to qualify and meet those qualifications to become an executor. And then there's a lot of documents that have to be filed, and that's where Hook Law comes into play.
Yeah, that makes sense. To follow up on something you just said, if people think, okay, I fall into the folder of people who don't have a lot of assets, so it's probably not a big deal for me because I don't think this is going to be a big problem. How do you know if you actually do need help getting your estate together?
Well, I would say that if you have a loved one who passes away, you should at least go to an attorney and have a consultation and go over what the person's assets were and who their heirs were and kind of figure out if it's something you can handle on your own or if you feel you need help. Many people think they don't have many assets, but that's relative. You know, someone might think they don't have a lot of assets, but to someone else, it's quite a lot. And so the process can get complicated. It's important to seek legal advice.
So you're saying, just to clarify, that even if somebody thinks they may be able to handle it themselves, it's worth it just to consult and get a professional opinion to make sure that you've crossed all your T's and dotted your I's?
Absolutely. It can be a lot more involved than people realize. Even when something's relatively simple, there are still documents that have to be filed with the court. There are still procedures that have to be followed, and if you don't follow legal advice, you can get yourself into some legal trouble. So we want to avoid that.
Absolutely want to avoid that. So what if there's not an existing will or estate plan? I imagine that complicates things.
Well, some people say, I don't have a will, I don't have an estate plan, and what I always say is, you have an estate plan, you just don't realize you have an estate plan, because the state that you live in when you pass away has decided where your assets will go if you don't have a will. So, and that may not be what you want, especially if you have a blended family. It could be going partly to your spouse, partly to your children from outside of the marriage, and that's not necessarily what everyone wants. So it's important to take control of your own decisions and come up with a will before something happens, before you pass away. Otherwise, the state's going to decide what happens to your money. And if you don't have any relatives, your assets can actually go to the state, and we don't want that at all. As
you mentioned earlier, you know, this can really cause a lot of problems down the road. And do you see a lot of that actually happening? Are there people out there who aren't getting it together and then you're having to deal with this after the fact?
We say that we practice in family dysfunction, and a lot of that comes from heirs who think they should be entitled to something, they think they should be getting money from an estate, and there can be a lot of confusion when the proper plan is not in place, and that's why it's important to seek the advice of legal professionals, of accountants, and people who know the intricate laws of what's going on. Because when people think they're entitled to money, things can go haywire very quickly.
You do need to talk to the professionals, like the folks at Hook Law. How do they get in touch with you, Emily?
So you can go to our website. It's www.hooklaw.net, and we are licensed in Virginia and North Carolina.
Awesome. Yeah, book that appointment, hooklaw.net. The phone number there on your screen, 757-267-9586. An important topic, and you know what? I don't think the conversation was too bad about it today.
No, it's tough, but we have to talk about the tough things.
Yeah, and you make it pretty easy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Absolutely.